Hello everyone, my creative students! It's me, Crepak, your teacher in this course. This video was created as a disclaimer to explain the basics of how the model creation process works. So, let's start with the most important rule. There are no rules. And that's it. Thank you everyone, and bye-bye. Okay, just kidding, just kidding. Actually, there is some truth in this joke. After all, no matter what rules or boundaries you are told, you are not strictly required to stick to them. I mentioned this in previous lessons. Remember, rules can be broken. The main thing is to do it in such a way that your model looks attractive and doesn't go out of the game's style or the style you follow. Speaking of style, as you notice, in this course we are learning mostly the style that fits into Minecraft. Later you will get more familiar with this style, so this style is commonly called vanilla-like. It is a style that fits into Minecraft and yet in a way looks much better than basic Minecraft. This style is simply pleasing to the eye and quite flexible. Therefore, I repeat, your task as 3D modelers is to make the most impressive and beautiful model, whatever it may be. Let's return to style. Everyone's style is actually their own, because our sense of beauty and our style of model creation depend on many factors. For example, style often depends on the content you watch most often or love. Therefore, everything you model, draw, and invent consists of reimagined images from the past. As for the vanilla-like style, it is simply an approximate image and an example of a style that some content creators rely on. But each of them makes this style unique in their own way. Your style is unique in its own way, but you must understand, this is Minecraft and far from all styles and approaches look beautiful in it. Therefore, when you create something in your unique style or in the style you aim for, you must always think to yourself, how can I fit my style into the game and how can I attract players with my style? Some make their models for a game that just resembles Minecraft, some completely change Minecraft itself, creating a unique and distinct atmosphere within it, some make their models more cartoonish and cute, and some, on the contrary, gloomy and brutal. Therefore, my friends, think about this. Think about what you would like to aim for and what you want to do further on your path. But be calm, your style will come to you one way or another with experience and practice. Well, now let's return to the rules. I told you that they can be broken, and I also told you about what rules and mistakes exist. I covered this in the lessons on the Blockbench manual. But there are some other mistakes that beginners make, due to which the model looks completely unpresentable. Therefore, I've got good news. I will tell you about the main mistakes of beginners. Error 1. Z-fighting. Z-fighting is when any faces of the model overlap exactly on top of each other, so they fight for which face will be displayed. As a result, a flickering area appears on the model. Fixing this is simple. Either you need to make an identical texture in these places or slightly move one of the parts of the model. Error 2. Noisy or dusty texture. A noisy texture is a texture in which there are many pixels that are almost similar to each other, located in an almost random order. This can only be fixed by practice, and also, as I call it, you need to relax. After all, those people who draw a noisy texture, as a rule, stress out very much trying to occupy absolutely every pixel with another unique pixel. They literally draw the texture pixel by pixel, but the result is a mess. So relax and give more freedom to a single color. In other cases, a noisy or dusty texture may be appropriate, but in limited materials like dust, old furniture, straw scarecrows, and so on. Error 3. Lack of texture variety. This mistake is the opposite of a noisy texture. In this error, absolutely the entire texture is a solid color, which looks quite boring. This can be fixed by simple material planning and the detail of your model. And of course, shading, which I told you about before and will tell you about a little later. Error 4. Obvious gradient. An obvious gradient is when there are many transitional colors in the palette. One way or another, the entire model often has a gradient in itself. For example, darker and colder colors at the bottom, and lighter and warmer colors at the top. But when the gradient is directly visible, stepped, or the colors do not differ from each other almost at all, or sometimes quite the opposite, they stand out strongly. This is bad. This can be fixed by simple work on thinking through the texture. Think. In reality, colors do not follow each other in a dense layer. Colors as a rule go in large strokes and spread across the texture. And sometimes they are slightly mixed to add variety or detail. Error 5. Lack of shading. The model must always have shading, which shows from which side the light falls on the model and where there is darkening. Without shading, the texture seems empty, which we discussed earlier. To fix this mistake, just think about where your texture has darkening and where light can fall on it. and from this understanding create shading on the texture. Error 6. High voxelization. Actually, this mistake is very similar to a noisy texture, only from the model's side. High voxelization is when the model has too many unnecessary cubes, which creates a certain stepped look and overloads the model with unnecessary faces. Fixing this is quite easy. Just remember the lectern from the Blockbench manual. In Minecraft itself, the lectern is at an angle, which makes it an item made of a small number of elements. The same can be said about mobs. They consist of simple shapes, and if you add a little more cubes to them, they will look overloaded and terrible. Therefore, you need to try not to make the model too stepped. Well, now let's move on to the stages of model creation. The first stage is the idea itself. At this stage, you must come up with how the model should look. Inspiration from the internet will always help you with this. In this stage, the 3D modeler actively uses their imagination to invent a model and also actively searches for models and works that are similar to what they want to do. Also, there is absolutely nothing wrong with making a model exactly according to a reference, especially when we are talking about you beginners. A good practice for you will be just creating models according to references. If we return to the pro creators, they use references rather for their inspiration and to highlight some interesting moments from the reference itself. The second stage is model creation. And here, remember everything I told you. There are no rules. There is no manual that says how you must make this or that model one-to-one. If you give two different modelers the same reference and the same task, then both modelers will handle this task completely differently. Because this is creativity. Therefore, my friends, do not burden your thoughts with overthinking about whether you are making the size of the arm or something similar correctly. Just remember that it must fit into the game. Further in the course, we will make models according to references. And I will show you how I specifically made these models. You will always be able to do them in your own way. The third and one of the longest stages. A texturing stage. In this stage, everything is clear, you simply create a texture. At this stage, I will highlight a very important point for the entire process of creativity. And this is adaptability. Yes, you need to be adaptive. For example, you are drawing textures and understand that a part of the model is not suitable for what you planned on the texture. So simply edit the model. You must always think about whether what I made looks beautiful. Another ideal example is creating a palette. Here too, you need to be adaptive. Always be ready to add a new color, add new colors for an element, or completely recreate the entire palette for the model. Therefore, my friends, be adaptive and experiment. The fourth stage. This is preparation for animating and animating itself. At the moment, we will skip it for now. The fifth stage. Production culture. Production culture is when, during or after the work process, the project is brought to beauty and cleanliness. The project becomes as if polished. Therefore, this stage mainly means that you must bring your model to maximum beauty. Like rename most folders with a logical name so that they can be found in the search bar, clean the texture from unused elements, and create the padding. Well, these were all the main stages of model creation. There are other stages, but they are mainly related to publishing models, animation, and special effects. But as I told you, in this course, we will not cover this yet. And that was everything I wanted to tell you. This was a basic explanation of the modeling process. I hope my words were understandable and gave you some meaning and ideas. That's all. This was Crepak. Create more and creepy bye to everyone!